Hello, my name is David Castillo. This is the end of semester project for Palmer. That is the movie that I decided to choose. It is starring Justin Timberlake, and it is a film by Fisher Steven. Okay, so the introduction in the movie Palmer by Fisher Stevens is a movie about a man trying to get his life together, accepting a young boy that acts like a girl, and that Palmer ends up loving Sam for who he is. Palmer is Justin Timberlake in the movie, and Sam is a little boy, but they first met when Palmer was released from prison. Um, he was caught up in drugs, and I will get into that a little later throughout the presentation. Sam is a little boy with a missing father and a mother that is hooked on drugs and is gone all the time. Every now and then she comes just to make sure that the kid is alive, but that's about it. Palmer is a grown up trying to get his life back together after a bad fallout. So like I said, he had a bad fallout, got hooked on drugs, and he just came back from 13 years of jail. Both characters are completely different. Palmer is a believer of religion and that guys should act like guys and girls should act like girls. So, and then Sam is he's a really lovable kid. He's the kid that doesn't really care who you are. He will be your friend no matter what. Uh, but they both end up coming extremely close with each other. So that is a really good thing, especially for the NAP model. And another thing, I will be using the NAP model to explain how the relationship came to be and how it grew out through the whole movie. Character introductions. So like I said, Palmer was a football player. He played for LSU as a starting quarterback. His mom left at a young age. Dad passed away when he was a teenager, and the only family that Palmer had left was the grandmother, who he was living with at that moment in time. If you see down there, the trailer on the left is where Sam is living, and the house is where Palmer and his grandma was living at. Palmer believes that boys should act like men and girls should act like girls. So that's just the way he was brought up. If anything, he's the most understanding out of all of his friends. All of his other friends make fun of Sam because he dresses like a girl, he dances like a girl, stuff like that, and they call him weird and they say stuff like "What's wrong? Something is seriously wrong with that kid." That's literally in the movie by Stevens. Sam is a little boy who is trying to find out who he is. Like I said, he dresses like a girl. He puts on unicorn. He watches a show, Princess Penelope. His mom is a drug addict and his dad is gone, leaving him to deal with a rude and abusive stepdad. Sam has a very hard time fitting in the world, especially in school, and mainly because of how he acts, and everybody sees Sam as being different and being weird. So, how the NAP model, in my opinion, really, really happened in this movie is Palmer and Sam begin their son and dad relationship. As soon as Palmer's grandmother passed away, Palmer decided to they had no relationship before then. It was just he was living in a house and he was living in a house. So they would just see each other, but they never talked to each other. There was no relationship to start with. So Palmer told Sam to pack up his bags, taking him to the police station, which is when Palmer officially decided that he was going to look after Sam. So because Sam is so young, Sam is not angry. Like I thought he was gonna be angry about that, but in reality, he didn't know. He thought it was just like another ride in the car because he wasn't angry. And literally the scene after that scene, they were okay. The next morning they woke up, they were talking, stuff like that. But where the relationship really began is when Palmer started tucking in Sam for bed. Sam slept on the couch in the living room, so Palmer came in, tucked him in for bed, made sure that he was all right. This was the initiating stage of the NAP model. They also began experimenting, and this really happened when Sam asked Palmer if he missed his dad. So his dad, like I said, passed away when Palmer was young. So it really brought back some emotions, and it really made that scene really emotional and really tender. So he asked him about his dad, and then they began talking, and they began talking about feelings. For example, Sam then went on to say that he sometimes gets mad at his mom for leaving. Um, but he shouldn't get mad at his mom because it's okay because she's his mom. That's exactly what Sam felt, that he does shouldn't be mad at his mom because it's his mom, but she gets mad at his mom because she's leaving him for a long period of time. So we really start seeing the son and dad relationship intensify when one morning Sam is going to school. This never happened any other morning. It was just completely one morning. Palmer, who was Justin Timberlake, realized that Sam was just taking cookies to lunch and it wasn't food. It wasn't actual food, that was nutritious that would help him out. So he was just taking like a load of cookies for lunch. And so Palmer went on and made him a sandwich, sat him down, showed him how to make the sandwich. He told him if he could specifically eat the sandwich and he can take the cookies as well. Palmer and then but Palmer and Sam start integrating in the movie in Halloween. Sam has a teacher named Miss Maggie. She is really close to him and she really takes care of him. And Sam wanted to go as Princess Penelope to the class because the class is doing a dress up party. So Sam wanted to go as Princess Penelope, and then Palmer took him to the store so he can get costumes. However, Palmer wanted to, like I said, it's not a problem with Palmer, but he wanted to see if he wanted to maybe to be a pirate or maybe to be a I think it was Peter Pan or a prince. Um, but Sam said no. He said he wanted to be Princess Penelope, and Palmer didn't mind at all. Palmer bought him the costume. And another way that they really started integrating is when it's on the same scene. There's this elder lady, and she knows about Palmer's past. So because she knows about Palmer's past, she says that you're nothing but a criminal to Palmer. So Palmer rushes out with Sam, takes him out to the front, and then asks Sam if he's doing a good job taking care of him. And Sam looks at him and he specifically says, "You're doing a great job." And that we really it's a really emotional part of the movie, but that's really where it goes from just being integrating to where they start bonding. So for example, the definition of bonding is formally establish the relationship through public ritual, and that is exactly what Palmer did throughout the whole movie. The whole movie they were bonding because he knew that his friends didn't like the fact that Sam acted like a girl, but it didn't matter. He still took care of him. He still made sure that he was okay, that he had a roof, that he had a ride to school. So, for example, the main part where we see the bond really just come in, and all of the initiating, experimenting, and testifying, integrating, and bonding coming together is at the end of the movie. Even though he knows he's a criminal and he needs to get out of parole in order for him to be the legal guardian of Sam, he still tries to be the legal guardian of Sam, and he still wants to have him in his custody because the mother is gone for so long, to a point where he literally went up to the mom when she finally came back and he said, "Here's some money. I just want you to sign the papers so I can be the legal guardian of Sam." Now, throughout the movie, they never fell apart. They never had an argument. And it was never at a point in the movie where Sam was mad at Palmer or Palmer was mad at Sam and they broke apart and they came back together. They were always together. They never came apart. For example, Sam is too young to really understand Palmer's frustration, which is something that is very important to know, because if the other person doesn't know that you're mad, or but again, Palmer was never mad. All I'm trying to say is Sam was never mad at him and he was never mad at Sam. So there's no breakdown because Sam loves Palmer regardless. Uh, and they do maintain their relationship, high maintenance, to be honest. These two never break away from each other and they always figure out to stay together. They do throughout the whole movie, even when his mom came back and tried to take him. So his mother came back and tried to take Sam, and they told him that they were going to move. As that happened, um, as that happened, Palmer went ahead and tried to take custody of Sam and just, in a way, he kidnapped Sam, not to do it intentionally to harm the little kid, but in a way of he doesn't want him to be with his mother because his mother's a bad influence. So, for another one is they keep bonding. As their relation continues, they keep experimenting with each other. For example, Palmer ended up going writing a letter to Princess Penelope, even though he doesn't agree with the fact that he watches that show because he loves Sam so much. he went out of his way to write that letter for him. And at the end of the movie, we get a scene where, literally at the end of the movie, we get a scene where he gets the letter back, and it's a certificate that says Sam Burdett, and it's a beautiful touch. Miss Maggie, who is Sam's teacher, also plays a huge role because she's invited Sam and Palmer to different school events, which ends up getting all three of them closer. All three of them become a pack towards the end of the movie. But they went to a bowling ring, watched a football game, which ended up helping Palmer realize that Sam is what is keeping him going. Sam is really the motor of what Palmer is doing every single day. And Palmer sees, and then Sam sees Palmer as his dad. Their relationship is so strong and maintained that when Sam's mom came back, Palmer went and asked her to hand over custody of Sam, which she did to which she did due to how inseparable Sam and Palmer became. It even became to a point where the mother asked Sam if she wanted Palmer to be, if he wanted Palmer to be his dad, and Sam went ahead and said yes, I would love that. So at the end, Sam and Palmer never broke down their relationship. They never did. They never argued. They never got mad at each other. They were always there for each other. Um, their relationship remained strong by continuing to both bond uh, and both brought different aspects of life to each other. So I felt like that was really nice throughout the movie as well. In conclusion, overall, Sam and Palmer were brought together by an unfortunate death. They were never broke apart, and they stuck together by maintaining their relationship. They never stopped learning about each other, and they always bonded over things that they would do. The NAP model showed how they were able to maintain their relationship and how it was built, as well as and which sorry, I messed up on that. The NAP model showed how they were able to maintain the relationship and build it as well, which is important. All in all, this movie shows a character like Palmer fall in love with a kid like Sam. They grew up from their son and dad relationship. They grew from their son and dad relationship and did not care about what anybody had to say. And instead, Palmer ended up keeping his job, finding a girlfriend in Miss Maggie, and a son that he loves, who is Sam, and accepts him for who he is and not what others want him to be. This is my works cited page. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me redo the assignment on the YouTube. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.